single raise, for your limit raise down here. That's all fine. We don't talk about the distinction between having 3-card support and 4-card support and all that, because we've got to get you started and we've got to get you to find your 8-card fits. But once you get comfortable with all of that and you start developing your bidding system, I think it's very important to make the distinction between an 8-card fit and a 9-card fit. And if you can do it with one bid, in this case, Responder's first bid, that is ideal. Because it's going to help opener evaluate their hand. On an auction like this, and now we're looking at kind of just a standard limit raise. And I know that if you're playing Bergen, that this is a weak raise. Because I know Bergen is part of your structure. But if we go back to most people playing standard American or 2 of 1, if they're not playing Bergen, 1 spade, 3 spades is a limit raise. And it is usually, while some partnerships will say, oh, this can be a 3-card raise, it's actually more standard that this is a 4-card raise. Why is that important? Well, because opener, if partner shows you an invitational hand with 4 trumps, I am more inclined to accept the game try than if partner has only 3. That should be part of your evaluation process. So if it's a matter of game or not game, 9-card fit versus 8-card fit is a good reason to accept a game try that you might not. And it's just a matter of that one more trump in dummy. I mean, you will be amazed at how often, how much better those games play. Especially if you end up needing to rough a card or 2 in dummy. If you have a loser or 2 in your hand that needs to get roughed in dummy. And you might not always notice this, especially if you're playing against competition that is, let's say their defense is not quite up to snuff. One of the things, and I bet you Diane can tell you this, having played with me at least a few times, is that as a defender, I lead trump often. And I don't lead trump because I can't figure out what to lead. It's the old saying, oh, when in doubt, lead trump. Get that out of your head. Don't lead trump because you don't know what else to lead. Lead trump because you know from the opponent's bidding that it's the best thing to lead. And I find frequent trump leads, and look, sometimes I see the dummy and I'm like, oh, that's not what I was expecting from the auction. I wouldn't have led trump if I'd known that, but if the opponent's bidding is accurate. And in particular, I will lead trump against 8-card fits because it can be really valuable to cut down dummy's roughing power. And that's something we spend a whole week on. I don't remember if anybody here was in the defense class. I didn't do it this summer, but last year. So just from that standpoint, if you have a 9-card major fit, you can withstand some attacks by the defense that you might not be able to handle in an 8-card fit as well. So I do think this is important. I think a 9-card fit versus an 8-card fit is an important upgrade to your hand that you want to let partner know about, hopefully as soon as possible. So by the way, down here, since we didn't finish our ranges, we're kind of in the good 10 to 12 there. Now, if you have 12-point hand with a fit for partner, you may push that right into the game forcing category. So
do you have a partnership agreement that a limit raise is always 4 cards?
Generally, I do. Whether I'm playing Bergen or not, I normally play this auction right here. 1 spade, 3 spades, and 1 heart, 3 hearts is a 4-card raise.
So if you have
now, by the way, so for all of you, I don't know if you all are playing with each other. Are you all typically playing Bergen? I know it's on the chart, but is it something that has been incorporated that You're comfortable with all the raises? Okay, so you're using a different bid to show the same hand. But, yeah, so whether you're just playing standard races or whether you're playing Bergen, you have a bid for this hand, right? So that's the most important thing. You have a bid in your arsenal to show the limit raise with 4. Now, while we're on that subject, is everybody comfortable with how we show our limit raise with 3?
Tell us.
Yes. We think we are.
Anyone want to volunteer? This is where we're so remember. So this all fits in with our 2/1, right?
But
And
do
so
you show a second suit and then support on your next?
well, so if you're bidding a new suit, if you'd have to bid that suit at the 2 level, then you're forcing the game. So you may not want to force the game, right? So this is where, and we'll come back to this a little bit later, but this is where our forcing no trump comes in,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Because the idea with our is that if we have a 3-card limit raise, we're starting with a no trump, and then the plan is to support the major at the 3 level the next time around. So you can see, we ultimately end up in the same spot. We're still ending up at least at the 3 level. So it's not like we can't really show the limit raise and keep our bidding any lower than that. We've just got too many things that we're trying to do here. And so that's why, and I think this wasn't one of the other questions that you had somewhere along the way about forcing no trump versus semi-forcing no trump.
We've never talked about a semi-forcing
Okay.
no trump, so.
All right. So you see that on the convention card sometimes, and you'll see some people that play it, and they say, okay, is our no trump completely forcing? Must opener bid again? Or if you had a balanced minimum opening, are you allowed to pass? If you don't specifically, and I think it's so funny that it's on the convention card that we call this semi-forcing, right? Because it's really kind of a binary thing, right? A bid is either forcing or it's not forcing. Semi-forcing is half pregnant, right? As far as we know, this is impossible. So, so either opener must bid again or doesn't have to bid again. But I think the reason that they came up with this idea of semi-forcing is that it's really, what we really want to call it is mostly forcing. Because it should be, even if you have that agreement, it should be pretty rare that the opener passes. I think for the sake of partnership harmony, it's probably best to stick with it as being fully forcing until you're comfortable with doing something different. And one of the reasons that you want it to be completely forcing is that if responder has this hand, you've got to keep the bidding open so the responder can show it, right? Because one no, that is one of the trickier things about that forcing no trump is it can be anything. It can be almost any hand type that isn't good enough to force the game, and the point range on it, is like 6 to 12. That's a pretty wide range. It's a wider range, than say any of those bids have, and so it tends to take 2 rounds of bidding to start to tell partner where you live when you've responded a no trump, because we've got to roll so many hand types into that bid, and so probably the most compelling reason to follow that forcing no trump and scrape up some kind of bid, even if you don't like your rebid, even if it's a 3-card minor that you're rebidding, which is very common with your forcing no trump, is that partner's next bid may be supporting your suit and may be a limit raise. So you want to make sure that you're keeping the auction open. So back to our categories here. So this is these are our sequences when we're down here in the invitational category. So hopefully we're comfortable with so pick up your hand, partner opens a major, you have 3 or 4 card support for that major, and now you're adding up your points and you're like, okay, well, where in the spectrum are we? If you are game forcing, you can generally get away with not supporting partners major with your first bid, as long as you get your game force set up, right? So the thinking is, any auction that starts, say, 1 spade, 2 clubs, you can always come back and depending on what level, you might have to do it at a different level, depending on what opener has to say. But a lot of times you pick up a hand, you're like, and you know where you belong, and this is I think the most comfortable kind of auction, particularly in a 2-over-1, right? Partner opens the bidding. You have a full opening hand, and you have at least 3 card support for when partner opens a major. So the nice thing about that hand is that as soon as you see partner's 1 spade hit the table, you know that you belong in at a minimum, say 4 spades, right? And so then it's just a matter of, okay, what is the process that I go through to show this hand? I know where we're going, or at least I know where we're going at a minimum. Maybe your partner has a really good hand, and maybe you're going on above game. Maybe you're going to slam. You want to start developing your plan, and so your first bid in that situation may in fact be a new suit. If you look at your hand and you know that you're not going to force to game, but you know that you have support from partners major, you should probably be supporting it with your first bid, whether it's a 3-card raise or a 4-card raise. And of course, this down here is really the only exception. This forcing no trump, and specifically the invitational hand with 3-card support of all these sequences here. This is really the only one where you've made your first bid and still left partner in the dark about whether or not you have support. And so that's, again, maybe that's something about the forcing no trump that's not ideal, but you gain a lot on your forcing no trump on a lot of other auctions. So don't feel too bad about that. Don't worry about suppressing that major suit support temporarily. With almost all of your other raises, get yourself in the habit of, okay, I'm going to support partner's suit one way or another. Excuse me. It's just a matter of, okay, what's the bid? What's the best bid in our system? Is it a single raise? Is it a double raise? Is it is it one of our, and we'll come back to those too, but one of those which might be a Bergen bid, an artificial 3 clubs or 3 diamonds. So that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about size of fit. This middle category here. Now that's not as good of a hand, but if you've ever wondered, and I think now you probably have not played Bergen.
Not yet.
Right, okay. If you need some clarification on that, because
I've been reading a little
okay,
bit.
all right.
Yeah.
If you at least have some,
overview.
all right, if you have some familiarity with it, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure, because I think since everybody
Thank
else
you.
is playing it. So I think it's a good thing to ask, well, okay, why are we using this? Because we are remember that, so pro and con of your mixed raise in Bergen. And is everybody playing the original Bergen? So the 3 club bid is this hand here, and the 3 diamond bid is this hand down here. And
So
both-
we've adjusted the invitational to be 11 because everyone's opening a 12-point hand. So 11 is invitational, and therefore the 3 club Bergen bid is 7 to 10. My partner and I have modified it to be 9 to 10 because 7 is not enough point. Law of total tricks is not working for us. So 7
I
to
think
10 is
so. I
what-
think that's going to have more to do. That's probably going to have more to do with shape than anything else.
Okay.
Now remember that even if you play Bergen, you are not absolutely compelled to use it every time
Right.
that a hand fits the criteria.
Excuse me. I have a question on your high card points. Once you know that you have support for your partner's opening, shouldn't you be using dummy points?
Yeah, and I know that is the term that you all use, and that's fine. I tend to do my yeah. I mean, if you are looking at this as dummy points, so like when you're talking about, okay, we want 11 for invitational, you're talking about 11 dummy points.
Absolutely.
According to yeah. And I know I wrote high card points down there.
Okay.
We're talking about to some degree we're splitting hairs a little bit. You can make the adjustment, make whatever adjustment you need. I would say so. I think to use high card points for all of these ranges is actually accurate on its own if you don't have a singleton. Sometimes I think I get the sense that maybe you're being a little too liberal with your evaluation on dummy points, and there's one particular situation, and that's when you have a doubleton. I think the only reason I know this is that Marilyn O'Neill and I have played several times, and there were some hands that I opened the bidding, and she basically treated a hand as that was really just a single raise worth a simple raise or single raise as invitational. And when we talk about the hand, her comment was, well, but I had a doubleton, isn't that worth something? And I would say if you're only in an 8-card fit, and so that the dummy only has 3 trumps, I think you're going to find that the doubleton is really not worth an upgrade on your hand. People overvalue doubletons on defense too. I can tell you that as a defender, and the reason I bring this up from a defensive standpoint is it's the same concept. If you are defending, if you're an opening lead, and you are in the habit of leading doubletons, and it's not a suit that partner bid, you're making a bad lead. 99% of the time, you are making a terrible lead. Big difference between a doubleton and a singleton. Singleton, understandable, because it's easier to get a rough when you have a singleton. When you have a doubleton, you're not going to get a rough very often. You're just not going to have the timing. By the time you have shortened yourself in the suit and gotten rid of that other card, most of the time declarer has drawn trumps, or either that or partner doesn't have an entry to give you the rough, even if you theoretically could rough. And so I apply that same thinking to when you declare the hand. Dummy, if you have 4 trumps in the dummy and a doubleton, now I would give that doubleton a little more value. And if you want to assign that value as the doubleton, fine. To me, I do it more subjectively, and it's, well, I have the 4th trump. So kind of what we talked about before, where I said, we're giving an upgrade, and so again, I understand that this idea of it's for a lot of people it's easier to do your evaluation by assigning a specific point value to a singleton or a doubleton. But to me, 6 to 9 highs is really only worth 6 to 9 highs unless you have a singleton, and now you may have moved the hand into this category.
Yeah.
So if you have 8 or 9 high card points, but you have a singleton and you have 4-card trump support, yeah, you should be treating that hand as invitational. Because now the hand is too good to just give a single raise. So, kind of a roundabout way, but does that kind of get what you're just? And I know, and I'm glad you brought that up because just because I don't, you know, I have never presented things as as formally, and I figured that out, you know, looking at the chart here, you know, that we have, that we have you know, very specifically, you know, defined this as, you know, DP, dummy points. So I might not have known what that was at first, but yeah, I did get filled in on that. So and again, you know, like I said, all that stuff is, I mean, to me, the most important thing is that you're evaluating. Let's take the other side of that. And why don't we